7 Debugging Part 2. This is a kind of bonus video really, as we've already done the real work of debugging in Lesson 7, so this is just an extra technique to be aware of. We're going to cover running in a native console and debugging in a native console. As you've already seen in the previous lessons, Eclipse has its own built-in console for displaying output from programs like the Hello World one we created right at the beginning. That's all well and good, but sometimes you really want to work with the actual end product, i.e. the console that the program is really going to run in. After all, no one is going to run your program in the Eclipse console. So for this lesson, I've got a short program called Invader that you can download from the membership area. If you do that now, you can follow along with the steps coming up in the video. First of all, let's create a project with File, New, C++ Project. We'll call it Invader. Make sure Empty Project is selected and Linux GCC for the toolchain. Then we'll accept the default debug and release configurations as usual. Next, let's import the file that we've just downloaded. Right-click on the project and select Import, and then File System under General. Now on here, if you browse to your Downloads folder or wherever you've downloaded your file to, select the folder, and then on the right here, select just the individual CPP file for import. Also, remember to check that Create Top Level Folder is checked. Once you've enabled this option once on project creation, Eclipse remembers it for next time, so it should be. Okay, now we've got our new Invader project on the left here. If we expand this, we can see that the top level folder that's been created is called Downloads. That's because Eclipse uses the name of the folder that the file resides in at import. Now I don't really like that name, so I'm just going to rename it before we do anything else by right-clicking and selecting Rename. I'm going to change it to the more conventional source. Okay, so let's open up the Invader CPP file. It's not too long. Build the project first of all with hammer icon. And then click the green Run arrow to run the executable. And there's the output. It's a little Space Invader. The output, as you can see, is appearing in the Eclipse console here, and that's okay for the most part. But what if you had reports of a bug that you couldn't reproduce here, or you simply wanted to test and run it in its live environment? What we can do is change the run configuration to send the output to the Genome terminal instead of the Eclipse terminal. This is very similar to what we did with the Maze Run app, but in that instance we had to create an external run tool to do so. If you're just running something in a console and don't need to worry about keyboard input and output like we did in the Maze Run game, then you can alter the run configuration directly. And the big benefit of this is that you can debug in the normal way without having to attach to an external process. So first of all, let's amend our run configuration. If we select Run configurations, we can see that the Invader configuration already exists. This is the default one created by Eclipse. So what we need to do here is select the Common tab under the Invader run configuration. Then if we come out of Eclipse briefly and open up a terminal, we need to type tty, which is just a little Linux command that will tell us the file name of the terminal connected to standard input, which is this terminal we're looking at. So we get the result here, dev pts1, and what we want to do with that is head back to the Common tab in Eclipse, uncheck the allocate console option, which is why you get the Eclipse default console when you run a program, and instead check the file option and type the file name of the terminal in the box, /dev/pts/1. A little bit lower down, we can uncheck this launch in background option as well. Then click Run. Now you can see that instead of the program output in the Eclipse console here on the right, we have a little message that says console output redirected to file dev pts1. So if we switch to our terminal, there's our Invader, and he looks much more authentic on a nice black background, I think. Okay, let's look at debugging. This is actually really easy once you've set the program up to run in a console, and as of Eclipse Luna, you don't need to configure anything, it just works, which is great. So click the debug button and the debugger opens up. Execution has been halted at the top of main as usual, and you're all ready to debug. I know you know how to use the debugger now, but just to illustrate, I'll pop a breakpoint on this line toward the bottom where we have a printf statement. Then I'll press resume. So execution hits the breakpoint. We've stopped at line 42, and you can see all the relevant variables here in the variables window. If we switch over to the console, you can see it's printing out the GDB info to the console as well. So here it's telling us we're at breakpoint 3 at line 42, and it prints the source code out for us at that line. Switch back to Eclipse. I'm going to press resume a few more times and then switch back to the console again. Now we can see the characters being printed out along with the debug messages. So we're currently mid-debug session on our Invader program, but this time it's all being done using the genome console. As usual, when we're done debugging, we can click the terminate icon, close the debug perspective, or just switch back to the CC++ one. It doesn't matter if you leave it open, and we're back to our project. So there we go. That was a nice, easy lesson. Next up, I'm going to talk through the maze run game code.